My wife was going to school, law school, so she didn't have any much time. Plus, we were expecting. So all the variables that you actually hope, and our first child, who is here, Raza is here, sitting here right now, he's 8, right here. He was with me at work today, so I brought him along. And he was about to arrive, and my family and my elders were telling me, like, what have you been smoking? I was the chief architect at the previous company, and I had to kind of leave the job, jump right in, and I had never done this before. And just being a technical person, a lot of times you get kind of labeled as to say, well, you've never done a company. So the why it was even more complex, and I want to share with you a bit, the kind of failure part of it. And then maybe after failure you'll get success, which is important to understand. That it is, when you jump into it, you're kind of burning your boat. You have to burn your boats. If you linger on to say, look, maybe let me give it a try, I'm going to keep my job, do it on the side, I'm brilliant, I know how to manage the time, and keep your job and still try to do it is very, very hard. And I tried that and failed. So I tried to actually at that time, this is 2004, tried to build a company. While I was a wireless architect, known very well in the industry for what I did on the broadband wireless side, I tried to actually build a company which would be more like a Netflix. Of that time, we call Netflix as the Mailflix. You send the DVDs in mail. The real Netflix should be which actually the content arrives on the internet. This is back in 2004. And we went to, we built a prototype, didn't talk to any VC. As a technologist, just build a prototype, it worked, looked like Netflix, easy, but the content would arrive on the internet. Went to VCs, and one of the key things, and this is on a side, and one of the things VCs would actually bring up, have you actually left your job? Like, you're working as a kind of a senior person in one company, you're raising money for this thing, and you don't have any expertise in the consumer thing, where are you going to get the movies from? And could not raise money. And had to shut it down. And learning from there was, long answer, was that when you're really passionate about something, then you kind of have to kind of burn your boats and go full in it, because I think that when you do that, your preparation to launch a company and to get into that endeavor is actually, it could be much more successful. I didn't give up at that time. Of course, to the point which was talked about by Razi, is that there's very highs and lows in the lives of an entrepreneur. Didn't give up, and while he's still on the way, Razi is still on the way, I started another company called Y-Chorus. And learning for me was that I have very high credibility in the wireless industry. If I start something, instead of building the product, I actually raise money, just based on the reputation that I have. And that's exactly that worked. Started something, raised funding, and I knew exactly what to build as the next generation mobile internet infrastructure. And that's how is the kind of the first company got going.
So I would say in my case there's a lot of similarities, but a little bit different. So there was no question about when to start, because I always knew that's my only way to succeed. For some reason I was with this hang up that you have to have green card to start a company, which is not true, by the way. I just wanted to let you guys know. Which I came to know later that it was not true. But anyway, so I was kind of stuck with waiting for the green card for several years after coming to this country. I left the job the day I got green card, because I didn't want to didn't want to prolong anymore, right? Just as Rehan said, I married. I was 18 months before that I got married, and I had a 4-month-old kid at that time. But as Amir say, that risk is already written, so you do not have to worry about it. So I started trying different things, didn't work out. First idea did not work out, actually, did not get funding. Reached to the point where I was about to, very frustrating time, you do not have cash remaining after 4 or 5 months. But instead of going back to the job, what I did is I said, you know what, I should start doing consultancy. So I started working like 3-4 hours a day to make enough money to survive, and still focus most of the time on the trying the startup idea. And this is when finally it clicked, and I got together with the right folks and got the funding, and that's how we started. So the lesson which I learned through that is first of all, our belief helps a lot, because risk is written. You will get what you get, so do not have to worry about it, that hey, how would we feed ourselves and so on. The second thing is you have to jump in, as Rehan said. If you do not, then it's not your preference, it's not your priority, you're not really serious about it. So I think that's what helped me in, although the first one was failure, did not get funding. It happens. You should not get demotivated by that. It's important to keep trying, and that's what.
So the first company that I started, I set myself up. I was in my mid-20s. I was working for somebody, and I set myself up with 3 goals basically. I wanted to essentially buy a house, start a company, and get married. I was not married at that time. Not necessarily in that order, but nevertheless, those were the 3 goals that I set myself up in there. I figured that, if I start a company, it'll be very difficult to do the other 2. Nobody would, so this guy is unemployed, is not making any money, and also, no way could I get essentially any kind of credit in order to buy something. Those days I would, so what I did basically was I first wanted to essentially ordered it up and said, okay, I want to figure out how to get married and how to buy a home. And it turns out that what actually happened was I did not get married until a little bit later after that, but I actually bought a house, and I took, in those days I took a loan, and I actually, that created in my mind, it actually took a huge burden off me, because I figured that if I start a company and I don't have a steady stream of income, I would not be able to buy something in a moving market. In those days, even though the real estate market is very hot now, it was also very hot at that particular time. So I actually bought a house, and while it was closing in 30 or 45 days, I put a plan together to actually start a business. And I signed the papers for the house in the morning at 9 a.m., and I submitted my resignation at noon. In that, now that I think about it, it was probably crazy to do. I had about 6, and I figured that if I need 6 months of money to pay for my mortgage, I would be okay. And that's all I had. And for the next 6 months, I had 0 furniture in the house except for a table and a chair, and actually a couple of chairs because there were a couple of other people that were working with me, and we worked from that house, and I slept on a mattress effectively on that. There was absolutely 0 furniture, and I did that for 6 months. That's kind of my startup story over there. But I want to point out that I think 2 things basically is the lesson from that effectively is starting as early as possible is obviously the best thing to do, because as you grow older and there are more responsibilities and more family and things of that nature, that changes your calculation effectively. So I encourage all of you to do that, and not only for yourself, but as you start families. Now I have 2 college-age kids basically. And one of the things that I did with them was I wanted to essentially make them street smart. So about 3-4 years ago, when they were in 9th and 10th grade, I had them buy and sell things on eBay and Craigslist. And you know what? That was the best training that they got. My older son sold about $150,000 worth of iPhones one summer, and he made enough money to buy his own car, effectively. And my goal was to essentially make them street smart, so that if ever they were out of a job, they could at least buy and sell something and make some money effectively. Not necessarily to make the money itself, but essentially the way. And they learned so much through that process. They learned the skills of negotiation, talking. I mean, they can look at a Craigslist ad and say, this is fake, in a second. Or they could say, I can negotiate with this guy or not, effectively, as an example. But that has led them to actually starting companies now. And they have actually started. My second son actually has a very successful app on the App Store at this point in time, where he's making hundreds of dollars a day, not week or not month. So my point to you, all of you, is that there is no age at which you should not think about starting, just like what Osama said over here. The earlier the better, effectively, and take advantage of that. And if you are older and that, do the same thing with your kids, basically, and I highly encourage you to take advantage of that.
So I think everything that you have heard on the panel is absolutely true. So Rehan said, all in. You have to burn all boats, you be in. Raghav said, persevere. When your cash is burning, go back, supplement it instead of quitting. Only perseverance would pay off. And Razi just said, start early, work hard, and there's no right age. So let me add to that a little bit. Okay, on my story. I'm atypical in terms of my first company. I didn't go raise money.